our guest, Mr. David Hayter. Come on in, man.
Oh man, I kept you waiting, huh?
Yeah. He did actually, so if you bought tickets last year when he wasn't here, then Terrificon wasn't here, he's here now, so get off my back, please. Alright. Now.
Yeah, I had COVID.
Yeah. He could have came, but then there would have been lost.
Then you all would have been. Nobody wants that. What? Awesome.
Right?
You're awesome.
How many of you folks already met David? Did you already go downstairs, get an autographed photo? Everybody? Well, if you haven't, after this, we're going to take a little bit of break. The man needs to get some nourishment, but he will be back at his table. So if you do want to meet him, 4:30, I think you're coming back?
I'm coming back at 4:30.
So, I already told David before we got him here, I know you guys are all into video games, but I'm a movie nerd, and I'm a comic book nerd. If you don't know, I run the Terrificon that's here every August too, so go to that, because I need to pay my mortgage, please. So, I know David's work from movies like X-Men 1, X-Men 2, and The Watchmen. So before I bore you guys with movie stuff, I'm going to ask him about that first, and then I'm going to open it up to you folks, so you could ask anything you want. So just indulge me for a minute. So, why did you get rid of the squid at the end of the Watchmen movie? What's wrong with you?
You know, that's interesting. That's never come up before.
Really?
Yeah, no, you're the first to ask.
No, seriously.
Why did I?
No, was it your call or was it, I mean, if folks, a little backstory, anybody ever read The Watchmen, Alan Moore's classic book? Yeah. And Mr. Moore is notorious for he doesn't like adaptations of his work. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Watchmen, anything he's done. He likes the comic form. So when you take this daunting task to adapt what they call unadaptable into a movie, first, how did you get the assignment? Let's backstory. What did you do? Did you go, oh my God, now what?
Yeah, well, I wrote the movie X-Men, and
Anyone ever see the X-Men movie? It was a little independent film, I think,
it was a
wasn't
little
it?
fun little skit we did.
Yeah.
No, I did that, and it was a big hit, and then my agents are like, okay, now you're the comic book movie guy, and so I said, well, if that's me, then I want to do the greatest comic book of all time. And they said, no, you can't do Watchmen, you know, you'll never get the rights, and so on and so on, but I was like, don't tell me what I can't do, let's just figure it out. And so we found the guy with the rights, and Larry Gordon, and we went to him, and I pitched it to him. Pitched it as a HBO miniseries.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like 6-part miniseries, and I wanted the DVDs to look just like the books.
Yeah, nice.
But then Larry was like, look, I don't do TV, can you make it into a movie? I was like, well, I don't know. But we set it up at Universal. And so, in terms of the squid, here are all the reasons that it got changed. My contract with Universal, the first contract I signed for this was on September 10th, 2001. So the next day, we had September 11th.
Yeah.
And changed the whole world and was essentially the ending of The Watchmen. And at that point, I thought, I can't have images of dead people in Times Square or they will never make the movie. And plus, it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So immediately, that was needed to be different. The other issue with the squid was I was able to fit the whole thing into a 2-hour and 45-minute movie, but with the squid, I would have had to explain, you know, the island of artists, the genetic development, the reasons why there was a psychic giant squid creature. All of that would have taken an extra half an hour, and we did not have the time. And then it was Darren Aronofsky's friend, who was a physicist, who said, hey, what if Dr. Manhattan, spoiler alert, was the source of the thing at the end? And I thought that made a lot of sense. It was a lot cleaner. It sort of felt like the perfect movie adaptation move. So we did that, and and people are like, weren't you worried about the fans? And I was like, no. I don't worry about the fans. What I worry about is, I'm a fan, do I love this? Do I think that this feels right to me? And so that's how it happened. So if you miss it terribly, I love the squid. I love the squid. I think it's amazing. but it just wouldn't fit.
No, that was just an argument in comic book stores around the world, because every Wednesday I'll get my books, and when I mention you were coming, they go, ask him about the squid. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, all right, on my list, ask him about the squid too. Actually, X-Men 2, one of my favorite of all the X-Men movies, that's you as well, correct? Mm-hmm. We had Rebecca Romaine here last July. Yeah, she was here, she was Mystique in that.
Did she still have the blue stuff in her pores?
We did a panel with her and she talked about that.
Yeah.
She was like, yeah, places you wouldn't imagine you were going to live.
Yeah, and it takes weeks to get it cleaned up.
Yeah, it was interesting too. Did you like that one more than the first one because you didn't have to do so much of an origin story and you could tell? Because here's another nerdy comic book. There was a comic graphic novel by Chris Claremont who comes to our show every year. He lives right in Long Island. It was called God Loves, Man Kills.
Yeah.
And if you've never read it, it's a great book, go out there and read it. But it's all about hatred towards mutant kind and how they're treated and ostracized. And there's an analogy for a lot of other outcasts that this world has turned their back on. So when you get that script, is it very liberating? Like, this is a good story. This is a human story. And forget the science fiction elements of it, but this is an opportunity to tell a story about, hey, there's a whole world of people out there that we try to not, this one's mutants, but you can adapt it to anything.
Yeah.
And was that like the driving force behind it? Or you're like, hey, this is why I want to do this? Because that's why I think that movie resonates with so many people, because they identify and go, that's me. That's like when the mom tells the kid, have you ever thought of not being a mutant? I remember that line, I go, holy jeez, this isn't a comic book movie. This is it's a film. It's an adult, not an adult film, but anyways. But you know what I'm saying?
Adult films are very different.
No, but people for so long, and you were at the early age, now everybody knows what a superhero movie is, because they've seen a million of them, maybe too many. But back in the day, they were still a rarity, and to actually have one succeed on multiple levels, that's a credit to you, but it was also like you took the material seriously, right? He was like, we're not doing this spandex and
all of the people involved in making the film didn't want to. I mean, I wanted to make a comic book film, but I knew, but I'm a comic book fan, so I knew that there were real stories in these comic books, and they just wanted to make a great film. We did. So when we started working on X-Men 2, I suggested God Loves, Man Kills. That was actually my subtitle for the film. My first scripts, that's what it says. I think the studio thought that might be too edgy, but if you haven't read that book, it opens with these two children who have been hanged from a playground thing, and suddenly the chains around them, and they're dead, and the chains around them lift off, and you just pull back and you see Magneto, and he just says, "Children." And it's so heartbreaking, and it says "mutie" across them, like they've just been killed because they're mutants. And it's so heartbreaking, and that was the core of the X-Men movies to me, is about, the unfairness of how the world keeps groups down for idiotic reasons and for their own ego and racism or bigotry or whatever. And so that was the core of it, and it all started with God Loves, Man Kills.
Oh, okay. So we both read a cool book together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
Not together.
The 80s, well, yeah, I shared it to you. I rolled it up, put it in my back pocket. I said, here,
Oh,
take
that
it.
was you?
That was me. Back in 1985. I didn't have a lot of friends. Anyway, see, I got it out of my system. That was my nerd stuff. I waited a year for this. Right? I paid money, I fly the man in. That's all I wanted.
We can also go to dinner and talk.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Come on, everybody come to dinner.
Easy now. All right, so now it's you guys. You get to run the show for the next bit. My friend Jeremy's there with a microphone. So Jeremy's going to raise your hand like Phil Donahue. Jeremy's going to run up and down the aisles.
And guys, just so you know, there's no job I have not done in the entertainment industry. Please ask about anything and everything.
Balloon animals?
But if it's about snake, I didn't do balloon animals, but I did. I used to work for a balloon decoration company, and we did set deck on Who's the Boss, and I had to hang balloons on the set of Who's the Boss back in the day. Wow. And it turned out I was the boss.
Wow.
But I didn't know that at the time.
Tony Danza's got nothing on you.
That's right.
Anyway, you, sir.
Sorry.
Hi.
Hey.
My question was, what was your reaction to seeing Snake join Super Smash Bros. Brawl and seeing him come back for Smash Bros. Ultimate?
My reaction? I was like, It's showtime. Nintendo asked, they said they want to include Snake, and they asked me and Konami if we could record the codec things and all that stuff. And of course, I was like, that sounds amazing. So we were recording Metal Gear 4, and one day the Nintendo people came into the same booth, and we just took a break, and then me and the Colonel and Otacon, we did our codec calls, and it was so fun because, you know, Snake is so serious that he's inadvertently hilarious. And so, you know, so to do something that was intentionally comedic was really, really, really fun. And I also knew it would be a whole different audience for Snake. So now, you know, like little kids who shouldn't be playing Metal Gear are now playing Metal Gear.
Any other questions? Jeremy?
How about Snake? He's dressed for it.
So I have a question. If given the chance ever to do Snake again, would you do it?
Snake again? I'll do it. Yeah. Why? Do you have a gig?
The checkbook in his pocket right there.
Look, Snake is the defining role of my career. I love him to death. We're intrinsically locked together forever. I would love to do it again. You know, it's complicated. It's not. I don't own it. It's wrapped up with corporations and Kojimas and all those things. But if there's an opportunity, I'm there.
So it's totally not video game. It's actually a writing question for
Yeah.
you, because I know you did a lot of writing work. What's your best advice to like breaking out and like getting something you've written out there, like a screenplay, movie, scripts like that? What's your best advice from really trying to like find a way? Do I just make the fan film and hope someone watches it and then like, oh, maybe I like that guy's writing? Do I just publish that graphic novel? Like, what's the best avenue to do that?
Well, that's an interesting. I got a number of different answers for that. First of all, yes, go make your film. No, don't make a fan film. Make something that you own. Fan film, that's great, and that tells me you're a fan, and maybe it tells me that you can write, but I can't do anything with it. Like you want to make a short film that somebody like myself or like a studio or somebody's going to look at it and go, we should make a feature out of this, and we need to pay this guy a lot of money to do. Well, actually, they won't say a lot of money. That I was thinking of me. But eventually, you know, so make something original, write an original graphic novel. You could practice with fan stuff, but you can't sell it. There's nothing you can do with it. My other piece of advice for screenwriters is write your first film, put it away, write your second film, put that away. Write your third film, and then edit it. And then once you've learned how to edit properly, like your first draft, you write whatever you want. Anything, you know, just don't limit yourself, write anything, don't worry about budget, don't worry about, is it good, is it not good, it doesn't matter. Then, when you come back to it and you edit it, then you go through it very strictly and say, okay, this is not good. This is pretty good. This could be better, you know, so on and so forth. And because the big mistake people make is they write their first film, and it's typically about problems they have with their mother or something like that, and then they spend 10 years trying to sell that. That's not how you do it. You write a number of different things, and to be a successful writer, you need to have many different projects in your pocket. So if somebody buys your film, they're going to be like, great, what else have you got? And if you don't have anything else, you have missed your shot. You know, anybody can sell their first thing. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll get made, doesn't necessarily mean they'll buy the next thing, but you want to be ready. That's how a professional does it. You're welcome. And good luck.
Do you think it's easier nowadays with all the different streaming services to get content out there? Because when we grew up, there was 3 channels.
Yeah.
NBC, CBS, ABC, that was it. Now it seems like there's 3,000 channels.
That's true. Is it easier? Yes. You can write more things, a greater variety of things. You know, they'll make any kind of show now. Yeah, Netflix. Yeah, I mean, look at Netflix. They'll make anything.
They gotta do that content every month. You're paying that subscription, so they keep putting more and more on it.
But it's always hard to break in. You know, when you're non-union, when you've never written before, like there's just a huge vetting process that is a barrier to entry. So, like, I used to say the best way is to write a great screenplay, submit it to screenplay contests. But they charge money, and like some people are like, well, it wasn't worth it, I'm getting ripped off. And people spend thousands of dollars going to these things. So if you're gonna go to contests, make sure that they are legitimate, like run through Sundance or through some place where people have sold movies afterwards. But basically just keep writing and keep putting your stuff into the hands of people that can take it to agents or wherever, put it online, build up a fan base, that sort of thing. Make sure you copyright it first.
Oh yeah, copyright's key. All right, where we got? Jeremy,
we
I think
got
we're over here.
Yeah.
Just curious, going back to Watchmen, the squid it's a good reason for a change. Is there any other certain details, like with the characters' personalities and interactions that you felt were important?
Well, the other elements of the characters that I felt were important. Yeah, well, I mean, it being Watchmen, there's some of the most brilliant characters ever written. Not because of me, because of Alan Moore. He's a freaking genius. One of the things that I knew, that I realized making the movie, but that my daughter really nailed home for me, is that Dr. Manhattan is such a dick. And and the key to his character is he's this guy who has all this power, and he thinks he's becoming God, but he's really just a dude, and he's like leaves his wife for this 17-year-old girl, and like everything he says, like if you take it out of the context of Dr. Manhattan, it's just douchey, and so that's the key to him for me. Like this guy with all this power, all this ego, and yet he's still so fragile and just a jerk. I mean, also, the guy built his own body. So when he's walking around and his dong is hanging out, that's a dong he made, and that's a dong he wants you to see. So run that through your head, and you're like, oh, I kind of get an idea who this guy is.
Here's a question for you. Who would win in a fight, the comedian or Snake?
Or Snake?
Yeah.
Well, given that the comedian gets his ass handed to him in the first scene
I'm
of
not
the
talking
scene.
about the old comedian. I'm talking about in his prime in the
Right.
late 60s, early 70s.
I don't know. I mean, I think they're mostly the same guy.
Yeah, well.
Sort of. I couldn't say for sure. That's a debate for the internet.
Okay.
And then Rorschach is my favorite. Sorry, one sec. So Rorschach, there was recently a debate online about is Rorschach a good guy or is he a bad guy? Rorschach, and if he's a bad guy, why do we love him so much? Rorschach is a bad guy. He's a violent guy. He's a crazy guy. But at the same time, he believes. And the reason we love him is because he believes in right and wrong. He represents everybody here who's ever read a comic book who wanted Superman to come in and save the day and just fix all the horrible things in the world. He believes that to his own end, and so that was really important to me, that he's almost behind this psychopathic weirdo, he's still a child. He's abused as a child, never really developed emotionally from there. So that was also really important to me.
Here's a Watchmen question. The whole Black Pirate comic book thing, was that hard to try to put it in? Because I have like the special edition, the
ultimate edition.
We have like multiple editions of Watchmen at my house, and there's one that had that whole animated.
That's my favorite version.
Yeah, but it's a separate thing. Was that like, we're not going to be able to put this into a 2.5-hour movie? Maybe a miniseries we could have done, but did you do it at the same time, or was it after?
We had always planned to make the Tales from the Black from the beginning. We planned to make Tales from the Black Freighter animated, and then we knew we would cut it in on the DVD.
Oh, okay.
Always.
Oh, it's perfect, because I remember watching it. This is seamless. This is exactly like the comic, but I'm like, I don't know how this would have played in a theater.
It would have put the movie over, well over 3 hours, and at least, but we knew that's what we wanted to.
That is a great
wanted to do, and from the beginning, we weren't going to make it without the Black Freighter.
It's like a Watchmen. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's just,
Well,
it's a good movie. And did you ever see the miniseries, the follow-up?
I did. Yeah, I liked it.
Did you like that? Yeah.
Mostly.
Mostly.
But there were amazing things like that episode 6 with Regina King, where she's reliving her grandpa's memories.
Yeah, that's right.
That was amazing, and I loved Jeremy Irons as Ozymandias.
Did you ever hear any feedback from Alan Moore? He's never watched it. I think I've heard
He never.
looked
I know.
at it.
But I spoke to Alan a few
Oh,
times
really?
while somebody gave me his phone number.
No kidding.
And so I just called him when I first got the job, and I was like, Mr. Moore, my name's David Hayter. I've set up the adaptation of your masterpiece at Universal, and I said, look, I know you don't have an affinity for Hollywood, and I don't blame you, but I want you to know how important this is to me, how important it is that I honor what you've done and try to, bring that to a larger audience. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to be as involved as you like, or not, or whatever. And he was so sweet. He was like, he said, oh no, David, Watchmen, the book is my story, and the movie's your story, but you give me a call anytime you like, and if you've got any questions, you let me know. Yeah, and I spoke to him a few times, and yeah, he was lovely. He gave a quote to Empire Magazine, and he said, David Hayter's script is the closest adaptation, something like that, to Watchmen that I've ever seen. That said, I shan't be seeing the movie.
Oh, all right.
So
it was kind of backhanded, but it was
well, no, he doesn't like.
too.
Well, he doesn't like Hollywood,
No,
but he
okay.
respected me as a fellow writer, and he was awesome. He was awesome.
That's cool.
So
Hey, how's it going?
I kept you waiting.
It's alright, I was patient. And I'm asking this question in a really bad voice already. Is it okay if it's a two-part?
Sure. Why not?
One, what would be your dream project with other voice actors?
Oh God, I don't know. There's all sorts of projects. I mean, I can't talk about anything I haven't done or hasn't been made because I probably want to make it someday. But I would have loved to have done like an animated Sandman or something like that. But I can't really say. I have a deal to create an animated show, and part of the part of what I'm excited about is I happen to be friends with the greatest voice actors in the world, so I'm going to bring them all in and make something amazing.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Second part question is, what's the best way to get into voice acting?
You go to iwanttobeavoiceactor.com.
Legit site, it sounds legit.
Yep, it's D. Baker put it together. People ask us all the time, and I'm like, I don't know. I just lucked into it, I just was a handsome young man with an amazing voice, so it's not a joke.
His mom told him that.
So my mom thinks I'm cool.
David, you're handsome.
Yeah, thank you. I kind of fell into it, so I never know how to answer that question. But D. Baker, so go to iwanttobeavoiceactor.com and go to skillshub.com, where Jennifer Hale and Elias Toufexis and some of the greatest voice actors in the world teach classes, and that's how you'll get known by the community.
Also, I just want to thank you. Years ago, I asked you to do a cameo for my friend Andrew. I know you probably don't remember, but I just want to thank you for that again. That was really awesome of you, man.
My pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, prior to Metal Gear Solid, what was it that you were doing creatively, and what led up to you landing the role of Metal Gear?
Who said that? Say again. Sorry.
What were you doing before Metal Gear?
Yeah, what were you doing before MetalAr and what led up to you landing the role?
I was a struggling actor. What was I doing? I did a few things. I mean, I was the lead in Gulliver Dark Hero. If you've ever seen that movie, I did a lot of Japanese anime dubs, Castle of Cagliostro, and Moldiver, Fushigi Yugi, that sort of thing. I was sort of eking by, and I was tired of being poor, and so I produced a little $250,000 movie. Raised the money for me and my buddy to star in, And so we did, and then we had a deal to sell the movie, and then the deal fell apart, and then I had nothing. And I had nothing. But the year we made the movie, I made about $1,700 for the entire year. My dad had to keep me alive, and I was humiliated because I was like 27, 28 years old. And I was like, wow, this isn't going well at all. And then I auditioned for Snake, and then Jennifer Hale called me and said, guess who's gonna make some money? I'm like, is it me? Because I'm hoping it's me, and it was me, and I got that part, and then the next, but I was still broke, so I got a job answering the phones on the movie X-Men, and the director kept telling me, he's like, the script is horrible, and it's gonna ruin my career, and nobody knows anything about the X-Men. I said, well, I do. I grew up with comic books. I mean, I know the characters really well. So I suggested a scene to him, and he said, good, yeah, go write that for me. Which I didn't do because I figured he was kidding, and because it's illegal. I was not in the union, I wasn't, but he's like, where's my scene? So I wrote the scene, he put it in the movie, then he started having me, he's like, okay, rewrite this scene, and by the time the studio found out, I'd rewritten half the movie, and they were forced to make a deal with me. They paid me $35,000, which is the guild minimum rewrite fee, and not a penny more, and they got me in the Writers Guild, and then I went to Canada, worked on the movie for 13 months, did 150 some odd drafts, ended up getting sole credit on the movie, and then it came out, and then my friend Chris McQuarrie called me, and he said, do you realize you are the most successful first-time screenwriter in film history? And I was like, I didn't, but I'll take it.
What scene was it in the movie? Is it the one?
It's not in the movie.
Oh, it's not at all?
No, the scene was, Brian couldn't figure out how to have one of the characters say the word X-Men in the movie without it sounding ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, that was a concern. Now they say all sorts of crazy crap. And just oh, she's the Scarlet Witch, or why not? But he couldn't figure it out, and I said, well, look, why don't you have like Wolverine walking across the X-Mansion grounds, and he runs into Cyclops. Cyclops is like shooting hoops or something, and they get into a little pickup basketball game, and Cyclops is like, he's like, you should join the team. And Wolverine's like, I don't join teams, and then finally Wolverine looks around, he sees all these X's and this sort of Xavier ego trip, and goes, listen, why don't you and Xavier and all your little X-Men go to hell? And then he pops the ball with his claw and walks away. I was like, that way, your badass hero says the word, but he's kind of making fun of it, so it kind of takes the sting off of it. And Brian went, good, go write that for me. And changed my life forever.
There you go. We got a couple more questions here.
All right, ready when you are. Outside of Smash Brothers and Fortnite, what other games would you like to see Snake and Raiden in, like crossovers?
Genshin Impact.
No way.
Let's see, Among Us.
Donkey Kong, just bring
Yeah, they could pop up in Donkey
Yeah.
Kong.
Take 'em out, yeah. Old school.
A bear all over a box. I don't know, whatever would expand Snake's dominion over video games to the rest of the world. But Genshin would be pretty funny.
Anybody else back there?
Prior to Metal Gear Solid, had you seen Escape from New York? Were you aware of the comparison? And at any point post, have you met Kurt Russell or John Carpenter and had to talk about that?
Had I seen it? Yes.
I saw that movie.
Well, it was one of those movies that when we were younger, like, our parents would rent R-rated movies on VHS. And so the ones I got to see that I shouldn't have seen were Escape from New York, Friday the 13th, The Road Warrior, like, these were staples. So, yeah, Escape from New York is one of my top 10 favorite films of all time. I watch it once a year. I'm in awe of it. I've been lucky enough to be working with John Carpenter for the past 9 years on a project, which hopefully is getting made this year. And we talked about it. And I said, so, I was like, did Kojima ever come to you and talk to you about Snake in this thing? He's like, oh, the video game, yeah. He goes, yeah, he asked me about it. I didn't know anything about video games, and so I just said, yeah, go ahead. And he goes, I didn't make any money off it though. And I was like, you're kidding? You made a fortune. Just to make fun of him. And then I said, well, I'm Solid Snake. He goes, well, with that voice? Or that horrible growl? Like, come on. So yes, I've had one humiliating conversation with John Carpenter.
Do you know Ox Baker was one of our first guests? He was the wrestler, that scene that Kurt Russell gets him with the bat with the nail.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
That's weird. Yeah.
That's a brush of greatness.
What's got back there?
Yeah, shoot.
Can I try raising you up?
Yeah, please. I guess I don't know what that means. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's flirting.
Oh yeah, sure. Go for it.
Meow. 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 Meow.
Meow. The hell?
Not sure though.
It's your people, buddy. Your people.
I know. Also, the guy who just rizzed me up. The thing about him, he looks so much like Venom Snake.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I have two things. One is a question, and the other one's like a voiceover. Or something.
You're gonna do a voiceover?
No, if you can do a voiceover. The second
Oh,
one,
sure.
The first thing, I told this to my friend. How do you feel about the Twin Snakes being, I guess you could say, divided amongst fans in the MGS community?
I didn't know anything about it until like a couple months ago. I never heard there was any controversy, and then I did, and again, it's fine, whatever. Like, you know, I hope people are happy. If they're not happy, there's not much I can do about it.
Before I go, can I get Snake's death scream from Metal Gear Solid 1?
Sure.
That was top notch on demand, by the way.
Had a lot of tea with honey after that.
That's right.
Right? And I heard
You only get one of those.
One of the things that impressed me the most as a kid when I played Metal Gear Solid 3 for the first time was just the simple amount of content that you had, like Kodak conversations and all that stuff. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm not a true fan. I just thought that was so impressive. So are there any like stories about how like you guys put a lot of that content together, or were there like conversations of like, hey, it would be funny if we did something like this, or
No, we're not allowed to make up anything. Like, everything is written, everything is sent to us, and we're not allowed to change a word. So very often I don't know what I'm talking about or how it relates to anything. But it was just, you know, that's Kojima's world. Like, it's, you know, it's like stepping into a real world, and there's so many things to dig into and so many weird conversations about boxes and nightmares about poop monsters and God knows what else. But that's all Kojima.
Okay.
Are there any characters you wish you could have included in the X-Men movies, or you would like the opportunity to write?
Oh, sure. Well, Beast was supposed to be in, was written into X-Men. Good Lord. Beast was written into X-Men for many, many drafts, and the problem was when they went to the Statue of Liberty, I wrote this whole sequence where he was like swinging up through the rafters and fighting all these people. It was going to be awesome. But we couldn't afford that. So in the end of the second act, Beast would always get his leg broken, and then he'd be like, "Oh, I can't go with you," until we were like, "That's stupid. Like, if you're gonna have him, you might as well use him. And if we can't afford it, we can't do it." So we took him out of it. But that would have been cool. I don't know if you're asking about Gambit. Sadly, I'm not a Gambit fan. I mean, he's fine, but I was like, put him up on screen with that Cajun accent. That's going to be ridiculous. So I fought against that.
My favorite is Wolfsbane.
Is who?
Wolfsbane.
Oh, Wolfsbane. Yeah. Yes. Well, I don't think the studio would have understood a werewolf character in those days, but now they could do it.
Here's a new question. What's your favorite comic? Marvel, I assume?
My favorite comic company?
No, comic book growing up. What was your favorite? Or did you like everybody? 'Cause
I
was
liked them
X-Men,
all.
Fantastic. Whoever John Byrne was working on, or Frank Miller, I was like, oh, that's my new favorite book.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah, back in the
Frank Miller
80s.
doing anything, Batman or Daredevil or anything.
Yeah.
You know, Watchmen was DC, but X-Men were Marvel. I mean, I was all over the
You were
place. Like,
reading everything.
I mean, I started with DC. I started with Superman and Batman when I was very young and into my teens.
Yeah.
And then when I was 12, my friends introduced me to Marvel, and I was like, oh, this is a whole different world. But I don't have any more love. I have maximum love for them all.
Oh, okay. So you're not a Marvel zombie as opposed to. How'd you get in here?
All right.
I'm just a Marvel guy.
Oh, I see.
I see. Anyway, we have like one, two. Yeah, you're right there.
Was Metal Gear Solid 4 the most ambitious voice acting project you worked on?
Oh yeah, by far. Yeah, so to give you an idea, Metal Gear Solid, the first game I did, took us 10 days to record. Metal Gear 4 took us 9 months. And not only that, but you know, he's got accelerated aging in that story, and so I wanted him to start out here, and by the end just be falling apart, like his voice is just, you know, he can barely speak anymore. But to do that, we recorded it all out of order. So when we would do a scene, I'd have to say, okay, what percentage of the game are we into here? So I could know how desiccated to sound. And that was a serious challenge. And it was a massive, massive game to get done. But it's probably my proudest performance. It really turned out nicely, I think.
All right, let's get 2 more questions before we finish up because David's got to get some food in him and
Gotta get
go
some
back
food.
downstairs. Yeah.
Tasty.
Tasty. I just want to know, as a voice actor, how do you feel about AI being used, like AI voice models being used, like in the industry so flippantly?
I feel negatively about it. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure it's already happening, but any company I catch copying my voice is going to be regretful. Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I mean, AI is fun, it's a fun toy and everything, but to take the jobs of artists to put it through this horrible regurgitation machine, I think is terrible. Now, you use AI to run the human genome and cure cancer, there's a benefit, you know. But to make art with it, I just don't think. I mean, so far it's all horrible. Maybe someday it'll learn to be Scorsese or something like that. But that today is not that day, and so I think it should be regarded. You know, I said it's a toy, not a revolution. So we'll see where it goes. But I don't. I think if they took all of our voices and made a game with just AI versions, you're never going to get the same level of emotion and nuance and the ability to like shift in the moment to really hammer home an emotional beat. And so I'm not overly confident about it, but I am strongly against AI taking any artist's job.
One last question.
Thank you.
He's got a nice shirt too.
He does.
Have you ever seen Saturday Morning Watchmen? And the
I did. I just watched it. The trailer for that, and it's like the comedian's like, if I could just get that kiss from his daughter.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about how you were trying to do everything right, and like for those of you who haven't seen it, he goes out of his way to get everything completely wrong. So that just made me think of that.
It's really fun. If you haven't seen it, the Saturday Morning Watchmen trailer is hilarious.
And I can tell I speak for a few of us in this audience. As a man over 30, congratulations on the full head of hair.
Well, thank you. That's probably my most cherished compliment. I'll take it.
Hey.
Oh yeah, I know. Amazing.
57 about it.
Amazing.
Right? I sold my soul though.
Right.
Anyway, that's about all we have for today. Thank you all for coming to the show. I appreciate it. My wife appreciates it. Let's hear it for David.
Thank you so much. I look forward to meeting everyone I have not met yet. Like I said, I'll be back at my table at 4:30. Please come there, and thank you so much for your years of support. You're all pretty good.
All right. Let's hear it for Jeremy too over there helping out. Thank you, Jeremy. All right. that's it, folks. We'll see you downstairs in a bit.
All right, that was David Hayter's panel.